Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So yeah, I've been meaning to do this video for a long ass time, but it's really hard to have clean brushes when you are constantly filming makeup looks. Like, I quickly spot clean them in between, but like to actually show you like all my face brushes and all of that is really hard. So I finally got a chance to clean them all because I want to do a couple of chatty videos. I thought I would do my best brushes, like all the brushes that you basically need. Like, this is basically what I like to use. So I'm giving you a high-end option and a drugstore option for each brush, and if not, then it's just a drugstore brush because I absolutely love affordable brushes. I think there's so many good ones out there at an amazing price, so you don't always need to splurge on expensive brushes. Oh, but before I start, guys, I just want to say a beauty blender is a must-have in my toolkit, shall we say. But yeah, I'm not going to show you it or talk about it because everyone pretty much knows what a beauty blender is. It basically blends your foundation, concealer in, your powder. You can use it for many things, but I really want to focus on brushes because I feel like this is what people really struggle to find and know what's good for what. So I got you. Right, so I'm going to do this in categories, and first up, it's foundation brushes. Now, I recently have been loving using a duo fiber brush, and this is the MAC 187. I'm going to show you a few more affordable options in a bit because I not only use this type of brush for like liquid foundation, but I also use this brush with face setting powder. So when I get to that section, I'll show you a cheaper alternative, but this is just one style of brush I like to use when I apply my foundation, just because it buffs it out really nicely. It doesn't make your foundation go on super heavy, but it's still like you can stipple with it and you can really pack it on if you want to. So some other foundation brushes that I love to use is the Morphe G36 brush, and it looks like this. Really nice, dense and wide and like fluffy brush, but not too fluffy. But it reminds me, it's basically a really good copy of the Real Techniques buffing brush. So if you can't get your hands on this Morphe one, then this Real Techniques one does the job exactly the same. They're both basically amazing. Basically, I like to use foundation brushes that I can buff with, but also stipple, more importantly, because when you can stipple with a brush, you can put your foundation on like proper full coverage. Like, you'll get more coverage out of your foundation by stippling. So that's why I like dense, kind of almost like a little bit flat top, but they're like still nice and curved, if that makes sense. But if I need to buff, I can do also. And then just another option for you guys. This is the Morphe G40 brush, and I like this because it's slightly a little bit smaller. So it's basically the G36, but like a little baby version of it, but it's still dense, short hairs, not too long, and it's just a little bit smaller. So it's really good for when you want to just blend out certain bits of concealer, or just like if you just want to get in any small areas. It's basically exactly the same, just smaller, but I really like this. Okay, next up is concealer brushes, and when I'm not using my beauty blender, I love to use something like this. This is the Sigma Tapered Kabuki F86 brush. I love this because it's really nice and large, but it's got a really good tapered point to it, so it's so good for getting right in there. And because all the hairs are tapered so perfectly, like each hair is placed right at the right point, that you never get like any pulling of the concealer. So yeah, I just love this. It fits perfectly, it blends everything out beautifully and really quickly, so I love that. And then a cheaper alternative would be the Morphe MB12 brush. As you can see, they are very similar. It's just the Sigma one has a slightly higher point. I really do like the Morphe. It's exactly the same, blends it out perfectly. The hairs are nice and tapered, and it just fits into where you need it to. And then another type of concealer brush I love to use is the Morphe G37 brush. Now, this is also a tapered brush, but it doesn't really come to like a massive point, but it still fits in really nicely in this area, and it's slightly fluffier than the last tiny foundation brush I showed you, so it's really nice to blend your concealer out with. And also, whenever I'm doing like a no makeup look, and I'm just like spot concealing, and then I want to like blend that concealer out into the rest of my skin without it looking obvious that there's concealer there, a brush like this is perfect because you just stipple over it and it just like almost blends the edges and makes it look seamless and natural. So the next set of brushes are smaller concealer brushes, and these I like to use for a little bit more precision, spot concealing, correcting, things like that. So the first one would be this MAC one, which is a MAC 195. I literally won't use any other brush to conceal around my brows. I love this because of the shape of it. It just helps you to get really nice straight lines and precision. And then also for spot concealing, you can get your concealer just on the tip of it and pop it on there and then use the edges to feather it out. So I like this brush a lot. Another concealer brush that I love is the what is this? This is the MAC 286, and it's basically like the big foundation duo fiber brush I showed you, but a miniature version. And it's also basically a MAC 217 eyeshadow brush, but perfect for cream products because it has synthetic hairs. It's just a really good one to blend out your eyeshadow base. If you're going to put concealer there or you're going to put a paint pot there, you can blend it out with this. If you want to blend your concealer under your eye, like into your eyeshadow, which you've already done, you'll notice I use this in a lot of my videos. It's also really good for like spot concealing. So a more affordable concealer brush that I love to use, and I use it in every single tutorial. It's the Real Techniques Deluxe Crease brush, and I love this because it has a really short, it's a really like dense brush, so it's amazing for like packing on your concealer or corrector, but it's also good for like buffing it out because the hairs are nice and short. You've got control over the brush hairs. Again, it's good for your eyeshadow base. You can use it for underneath the eyes concealing, but yeah, I really personally like this for like pinpoint concealing and covering up, and generally this is what I use when I use my like heavy duty concealer to cover up any scarring or pigment. I'm very quickly going to go in with my brow brush, and I basically only use this one brow brush, so there's no other option for it, but it is affordable, and it's the Zoeva Wing Liner Brush. It's basically just an angled brush, but I have been through a lot of angled brushes, and the reason I love this Zoeva brush so much is because this angled brush is really nice and thin. I really can't stand thick angled brushes for the brow because you can't get precision, especially when you're using something like Anastasia Dip Brow or like a pomade, anything like that. You really want to get precision and control. It's not too long of an angled brush, but it's still got some length to it, but it's still quite firm, so it doesn't move around too much. You have the control over it, and I love how thin it is because again, you're not going to get product that's going to go anywhere where you don't want it to go. So, moving on to a under eye setting brush. Again, I only have one option for this, and I can't ever see myself using anything else. I don't know how I'd replace this. It's the Real Techniques setting brush. This is just the most perfect setting brush ever. It's the most perfect size, shape, like thickness, everything for under the eyes, around here, your T-zone. It's just perfect. So if you need a setting brush, Real Techniques is the one. For a face setting brush, like I mentioned when I spoke about foundation, I like to use a fluffy duo fiber brush. So you can use it to put on your foundation, but I personally like to use it for my face setting powder. So something like matte mineralized skin finish, just any like face setting powder. So I like to use this Laura Mercier duo fiber one. You can use it with cream products if you want to, but yeah, like I said, I like to use it. The reason I like to use a duo fiber brush to apply a face setting powder rather than the usual face setting powder brushes, which are generally quite large, round brushes. Now, the reason I prefer this is because it's going to pick up a lot less product and you can build it up. With this, I can just swirl it around in my powder, and then I like to swirl it on my face. I always take it in circular motions, and it's just going to distribute the powder on really nicely, really lightly. And if I feel like I need to go in with a bit more, then I do. But an affordable option for this brush is the Morphe M462. So it's exactly the same, basically the same. This one's got slightly more curved edges, which I do quite like, and it's slightly more dense than this one, But again, it just basically does the same job and it's affordable. Right, now to speak about the brushes that I probably get asked the most questions about, and it's bronzer and contour. So let's start with bronzer brushes. Now, this is the famous brush that you see in every single video. And for once, it's so clean, yay! This, guys, is the MAC 135 brush. I love this thing. I literally use it in every video, as you know. I just like the shape of it. It's like tapered, but it's like squarish. It's just perfect for bronzer because it's nice and fluffy here at the end, as you can see. But it still gives you a bit of precision. Bronzer doesn't need to be like your contour, so it can be a little bit fluffy. And this just fits in right here on my face. I've got a tiny pea head, so this works perfectly for me and for others that have a slightly larger head. It's just a really good size brush. However, I do have a dupe for this though, and I actually didn't realize I had a dupe for it until I was looking for this video, and I was like, damn girl, you could be using something else. But yeah, the dupe is Morphe R7. So you can see how similar they are, guys. This rose gold handled one is the Morphe one, and this one is the MAC one. So they are very, very similar. So if you are on a budget, I'd definitely go for the Morphe one. And then for contour, the brush I always use is the MAC 137. Now, this isn't a usual contour brush. Most people wouldn't contour with a brush like this, but I love to contour with a brush like this because the brush is tapered and it's really nice and fluffy, but comes to a point. You get your product on the end of it and you start from the back, work your way in, and you get like a really nice, you still get the depth of the contour, and you get precision because of the point, but then because it's like tapered and really long and fluffy, that's where you get a really nice blend, but without losing that precision. However, the dupe for this brush is the Morphe M500. So you can see they're quite similar. The MAC one is slightly fluffier, but I did just wash it, so that might be why as well. But yeah, this will work exactly the same. Basically, it comes to a nice point, it's tapered, and you're still gonna get like that nice precise contour with a soft blend. And just to quickly mention a cream contour brush, I love the Morphe G33 brush. It's like a little angled triangle, this brush. I like it because it's going to give you those nice lines that you want to create when you're cream contouring, and precision. A brush like this with really nice sharp edges is great for getting that precision when you're cream contouring. I believe I've used this in a cream contour video that I've done, so I will link it for you now if you want to check it out. Moving on to highlighter, I go between these two brushes and they're both affordable. One of them is a Vanity Planet brush, and this comes in a Vanity Planet kit. I'm not sure if you can get them individually. I got mine in a kit, and I really like this fan brush because it's not like that packed in with a lot of hairs. It's really like light and flimsy, as you can see. Because there's like not too many hairs and it's not a really dense brush, you really get a soft blend with your highlighter, and again, you can build it up. So I love that. And then the other brush that I love to use to go a little bit heavier with the highlighter, this one's great to use for like loose pigment highlighters and things like that. It's the Morphe M510 brush, and this just packs on a lot more highlighter. Generally, if I'm using this, what I like to do is go in with this and then just use my fan brush to like buff anything out. So these two are winner chicken dinner for highlighter. So for blusher, I like to use an angled brush. Now, most people would use this brush to contour with, but I prefer it for blusher, and it's the MAC 188. Because it's angled and fluffy, like I said, most people would contour with it, which you totally can do. This brush is dense enough to pack on your blusher, but it's fluffy enough to blend it out and make it look nice and soft. And again, because I have a small face, I don't know if this is for everyone, but because of like the size of it and it's not too big, it just fits perfectly on the apples of my cheek and like in between the contour and the highlight bit. So yeah, it's just a perfect size for me to go between, rather than going in with a massive blusher brush and then it's just everywhere. So I like a smaller one that I can buff out with. And then the dupe for that is the Zoeva 127 Luxe Sheer Cheek Brush, and I think Again, this is for contouring, but like I said, you can totally use it for blusher. Right, so onto eye brushes, and this is basically what I generally like to have with me if I'm going on holiday and I need to create any look. These are the brushes that I want and need with me to be able to achieve anything. So let's get started with the transitional eyeshadow blending brush. Now this brush is your best friend. It's the MAC 224 brush. It's a really nice fluffy eyeshadow brush. So I like to use this for transitional colors because it's going to buff and blend them out and kind of like diffuse everything. For me, this type of brush is also like an eraser. So if I feel like I've gone in too heavy with an eyeshadow and it's blended up too high or anything like that, I go in with this brush over and over, and it just diffuses everything beautifully and you get such a nice soft blend. I generally like to have a few of these in my brush collection because I feel like you can never have too many. But yeah, here are a few different cheaper options for you guys. So one of them is the Zoeva 228 crease brush. So again, it's very, very similar. Another few options are all Morphe ones, and this is the Morphe E27. Another option is a Morphe M504 brush, and then finally we've got one more. It's the Morphe M502, which is basically the MAC one's identical twin, as you can see. So my next favorite eyeshadow blending brush, which is going to give you a little bit more precision than the MAC 224 one, so the last ones. It's going to give you a bit more precision, but it still gives you a beautiful blend. And if you had just one of like the last brushes and then one of these brushes I'm going to show you in your kit, you're good for blending. Anyway, for a little bit more precision, I love the MAC 217, and of course this had to get a mention because it's just a classic eyeshadow brush, and for a long time there wasn't anything like this, but now obviously brands have caught up and there are different options. So there's the Morphe M433 brush, which, as you can see, here's the MAC and here's the Morphe. They're basically exactly the same. Another option I have for you is the Morphe M503. This Morphe one is again exactly the same as the MAC 217, but it's synthetic head. And then for slightly a little bit more precision blending, so again, another blending brush. These kind of brushes are perfect for getting right into the crease if you want to. It's the MAC 221. It's basically a baby version of the MAC 217, really nice and small and tapered with a nice point. And then my cheaper alternatives are the Morphe M514, which is this one. So it's basically exactly the same as the MAC one. And then another one I have, which isn't a copy for this, but it's just another type of precision blending brush that I love to use, is the Morphe M506 brush. I love this for, like, say if I'm doing like a spotlight eye and I want to get right in there and just blend those colors right there and like join up the crease. This is perfect for that because it's really nice and small, but it's going to give you a nice blend at the same time without diffusing the color up too high. Then this next brush is perfect for like packing on eyeshadow on the lid or even just going along the lower lash line. It's the MAC 239. It's just a flat shader brush. That's what it's known as. It's flat, it's got short hairs, it's really dense, so that's why it's perfect for packing on eyeshadow and really building it up, and great for like the lid. I don't actually have a dupe for this on me, but there are so many that are basically exactly the same as this, and I can list a different option for you in the description box. So these next brushes you can also use to pack on eyeshadow, but I prefer to use them for doing a cut crease with concealer or a paint pot because these brushes are synthetic, so they're going to work a lot better and give you that precision that you need, and also because they're synthetic and really nice and thin and flat, they're going to help you pack anything on, like a loose pigment or a pressed pigment or something like that. But one of them is the MAC 242. I love this because it's got a really nice curved edge. The brushes are really nice and flat. It's just a really nice thin brush and it just packs on everything, so it's so good for loose pigments, like I said, pressed pigment, cut crease. And then a cheaper alternative I have is a crown brush, and this is the crown brush C421 Mini Concealer. Again, it's got a really nice curved edge. You can also conceal your brows with this if you wanted to. Really nice and thin again, so you could just coat your brush with concealer, get it nice and flat, and then go in and do whatever you gotta do. Next up are pencil brushes, and I love the MAC 219. It comes to a really nice sharp point. It's really good for like packing on color. Say if you wanted it like when you're doing a spotlight eye and you really need to get the color on densely, then this is going to do that for you. But there are so many amazing affordable pencil brushes out there, and one of them is the Morphe MB12, which basically does the exact same job. However, the Morphe one is synthetic head. And then another like small detailing brush that I love to use is the Morphe M326. This is really good for like packing on color just in particular areas. If you want to get a bit of like loose pigment on or pressed pigment, because it's synthetic, really nice and thin and flat, it's going to help you do that without the color going everywhere. It's just really good and handy to have a slightly smaller brush than the usual ones, especially if you're not amazing at blending or putting on color. Starting off with slightly smaller brushes might actually help you gain control. And then finally, it's liner brushes, and I always get asked what liner brush I'm using in my videos as well, and it's the MAC 210 brush. It's a really tiny precision brush, like it's so small and thin, and I like to use this brush because you get so much control over your liner and you're in control of the thickness and things like that, and you can really get this brush nice and thin and like when you coat it with your gel liner. So it's so good and easy to work with. Honestly, if you are a beginner with eyeliner, this brush does look scary, but I would definitely attempt going for a smaller brush. I do have a cheaper alternative which I think works just as well, and it's by a brand called the Vintage Cosmetic Company, and I believe you can get it in Boots or Superdrug. But yeah, they also do a really nice small thin liner brush, and it looks slightly thicker than the MAC one, but I promise you, once it's coated with your gel liner, it goes really nice and thin. And yeah, I just find smaller liner brushes much easier to work with, no matter what level of like eyeliner you're at, if that makes sense. But those are all of my must-have eyeshadow brushes, guys. Like this is literally all I would need if I was going somewhere and I just needed to take like bare minimum and basics. I know it looks like a lot because I've shown you doubles and things, but yeah, this is what I would need and this is what I would take to achieve like a full look if I wanted to. If there are any brushes that you think I need to check out, if you've got anything to recommend, please do leave them down below in the comment section. And if you like this video and are happy that I've finally done it, then please do give this video a big thumbs up and obviously subscribe for more. And in the meantime, if you want to keep up with me, then make sure you're following me on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. Everything will be linked down below in the description box for you, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Mwah. Bye.